If you can, got it. Thank you. So guys, welcome to the AMA today. Ask Me Anything. Our topic for today is going to be cash flow. So cash is king, as we all know in solar. And one thing I hear across the country, all clients, my own experiences, is if you don't have good cash flow, it's just, it's the biggest limiting factor, and it's where people get stuck, right? So that's what we're going to focus on today. I'm going to go through some basics of it today, and we'll, leave a lot of rooms for questions and answers throughout. If you have questions that are not particularly related to cash flow and the topics we're talking about, that's fine. We can try to get to them at the end. So, with that said, for you guys who don't know, and one thing I will say this is just always a something that's meaningful to me, and because we are in a Zoom meeting, I always appreciate if people can turn their cameras on. I know not everyone can always do that, but it just goes back to the days where we could all sit in a room together or face to face and look at each other. It's just so much more interactive for me to be able to see you guys than just looking at the a name. So I do appreciate that. So with that said, I do want to just jump right in, and I'm going to share my screen. Well, actually, before I jump into the cash flow, I do want to give you guys a little background. For those who don't know me, my name is Brad Stoller. I've been in solar for over 13 years now. For many of those years, over 10 of them, I own my own solar sales and installation company, which I sold almost 2 years ago now. Before I got into solar, like many of you guys, I was just like everyone else, I was actually a government employee, never made more than $50,000 in a year, always struggling to support my family. Right before I got into solar, I was actually working 3 jobs. I don't talk about it. I was delivering food. There was this woman who was like handicapped, and I used to drive her to her doctor's appointment. This is before Uber. This is 2009, 10, that was like 2010, I think. Yeah. And, but when I got into solar, within the first 3 months, I was making enough money just doing solar sales that I could stop doing everything else I was doing. And I was able to support my family. And things that just seemed impossible to me, like my wife and I, we were renting a small apartment, and after starting our own company, we said, okay, let's maybe start looking for a house, because we're making a little bit of money. When I went to look for a house, we said, well, let's get a starter home. And I looked at different houses in our area, and we knew what our budget was. And one day, you search it online, and we found this house, and it was the dream house. It had this over 5,000 square feet, this swimming pool, 5 acres of land on the house, and perfect southern facing roof, which was my criteria. I needed a home with southern facing roof. And my wife had very funny criteria. She wanted a house with a well, which is really hard to find in the Boston metropolitan area. And she wanted fruit trees. Like how she wanted fruit trees, I don't know to this day, but she wanted fruit trees. And I just wanted a little bit of land, and I wanted forest behind it. So we found this house. It had apple trees, peach trees, plum trees, hundreds of blueberry bushes. I'm not exaggerating there. And this perfect southern facing colonial rectangular roof that you could put solar panels on, and it had 68 acres of land behind the house. And I remember thinking, oh man, one day I could get a house like that. And I remember talking to my accountant, and he was like, Brad, you can afford that. And I was like, what? I can't afford a house like that. He's like, Brad, you and your wife made over, between the two of you, made over $500,000 last year. I was like, I never made $50,000 in my life. You know what I mean? So I'd only been in business barely a couple of years, and I just couldn't believe that. And every single year thereafter, it's we just kept on growing and building our business. But I learned a lot. I learned I made a million mistakes along the way. I learned the hard way. And one of the things that was always my passion, though, was I remember one guy came to me one day, and he's like, I was like, what do you want to do? He's like, honestly, I was like, tell me the truth, what your goal is. Because he was my installation manager, young guy, maybe in his late 20s, had run installation crews for years. He said, Brad, I would love to own my own install company one day. I said, good. Good. I want you to own your own solar company one day. Let's make sure you get every experience, everything you need. So one day you can do that. And today he owns his own solar company doing installs. Because I realized something, like for me, I always want what's best for other people. Like I really, like he was working for me, but I always wanted him to be able to succeed. And I knew it was temporary, but if I could get 2 or 3 good years out of him, it's like we can still have that amazing relationship till today. And in fact, I realized, we're going to talk about this point a little bit later today. I realized that when I started that company, my first 5 employees, 10 years later, when we sold the company, all 5 of those employees are still with me. And to me, it was like, wow, it's like I was able to provide a career for someone, like a good living for a decade. And those people are my friends. Those are the people I go to movies with today and hang out with their families. And another guy I worked with, he owns another solar company now, and he worked with me, and he was actually selling, I don't know, like industrial shelving. And he was I actually, he was a client of mine. I liked him so much. He was so smart. I ended up getting him to, helped him start his own solar company, which he's been doing now. So like, I realized like this is my passion. I love helping people, and I want to see other people succeed, which is why I've been doing the solar coaching in the last couple of years and doing these programs. So with that said, let me just sort of jump into this. I'm going to share my screen. All right. So this is not going to be PowerPoint heavy. Don't worry, guys. I don't want to do a PowerPoint heavy thing. So cash is king, solar cash flow. So let's just jump right into this. Okay, cash flow killers. So what we're going to talk about is just some of the main things I have seen that's just really killed people in their solar companies and continue to, but people suffer to this day. All right. So 4 cash flow killers, we're going to kind of run through these. The first one is going to be lead KPIs. We're going to talk about these. The second is going to be money on the table. We'll talk about what I mean by people leaving a lot of money on the table with their companies. The third is poor, slow, efficient, ineffective trainings. I couldn't come up with enough adjectives to describe how poorly most companies are performing their trainings and how it's just killing them. 4 is speed to money. We'll talk about that one as well, what I mean by all of these. So killer KPIs, what do I mean by that? So there's a lot of KPIs, and I'm going to switch screens here for a second, because really what I want to talk about is what are these killer KPIs right here. So let's, hold on, how do I get out of this? Okay, so this is a simple little sheet I put together, simple spreadsheet. And I wanted you guys to sort of understand what are the main KPIs in solar and really where people are just getting killed in these. So this is based on, let's say you bought $1,000 worth of age leads and you got 1,500 good, solid leads. So this is also under the premise. A lot of people tell me things like, well, Brad, I guess there's so many terrible lead companies out there. Yeah, there are. But you know what? There's good ones too. So like, you can't just live your life in solar thinking everything's bad. There are good things out there. We, in other sessions, we talked a lot about these, but we're going to say for now, you have good leads here. And let's talk about some realistic numbers. So let's look at one KPI, contact rate. So what percent of these you're going to contact? Now, if you get a lead list like this, and this is much different, guys, than let's say you have an online marketing or Google ads running. That's a totally different KPI, right? So this is you getting a list of 1,500 age leads, and let's say you get about a 2% contact rate. That's like not bad for 1,000. That means you contacted, out of these 30 people you had a conversation with, your lead generators, your setters, whatever you call it, had that conversation. Of this, let's say you guys, well, why is it showing like that? Let's say says, yeah, 8%. Sorry, let me fix that. There we go. 8% of these people, 8% of these contacted, these 30 is going to turn to appointments. So 12 appointments, not bad, right? You got 12 appointments. So these are 2 KPIs, your contact percent, your appointment rate. Because again, if you talk to 30 people, you're not going to get 30 appointments, right? That's just not how things work. We know that. But we're going to say of these 30, 40% of them turned into this. So these are two different KPIs. It's a little confusing, and you can track or measure either one. This is 8% of our total 1,500 turned into appointments. This 40%, we're saying 40% of the people we talk to turned to appointments. And that number we can talk, I'll talk about numbers in a little bit, but that's a little bit low. Sit rate. So let's say you have a 50% sit rate. So in that case, you are sitting 6. So out of the 12 appointments, you sit 6. And let's say you have a 30% close rate, so you close 2. Under that, your LAC, your lead acquisition cost, was $556 per appointment. Now, I'm going to sort of jump out of this. So, how do I get out of here? Sorry. Nope, that's not where I want to go. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to stop screen sharing for a second, and I can't figure out how to do it. Here it goes. All right, so I'm going to ask you guys, I mean, Cyrus or anyone else, do you guys have an idea what you're spending per lead right now on average? Did you say something, Stella? I don't know, you're muted if you did.
Last I looked, it was under 2.
200?
Yeah.
So people say things, well, I only spent $200 per lead, right? Well, we're talking about per closed deal. We're not talking about how much you're spending per lead, right? So that's
Right.
really what we're talking about, the total lead, which is different, by the way, than CAC, customer acquisition cost, because customer acquisition cost, that's going to include other things such as like the commission you pay the sales rep. So, if you're a one-man show, then these numbers are a little bit different. With KPIs, if you're just going knocking a door, then what's your KPI? It's your time, right? But knocking a door and doing a one-man show isn't a scalable operation. You could maybe make some money doing it, and that's fine. And I know plenty of people who do that, and that's great. But we're talking about everything I focus on is growing and scaling a solar company, not just one person, trying to make a little bit of money on the side. And we can talk about, you can look at KPIs also for if you have like a big door knocking operation. But right now we're just talking about age leads. I can tell you nationally, lead acquisition cost are anywhere between $1,500 to $3,000. So this whole idea is like, oh, I'm going to have a KPI, my lead acquisition cost, like $100, $200. It's not shown by any company anywhere. Sunrun, the nation's largest solar company, their customer acquisition cost, which is a little bit inflated because it's going to include that sales rep commission. Their customer acquisition cost is about $8,000. It's freaking mind-blowing, $8,000. And if you figure 4 or 5 of that is commissions to the rep, they're still spending $3,000 or $4,000 on lead acquisition cost. So let's go back. I want to share my screen with you guys again. And let's just look at that spreadsheet again. So $500 actually, in reality, if you're $500 and you have a company, you're doing better than most. I'll be very honest with you. But no, let's look at some key factors here. I'm going to break down where people get killed. What happens if this contact rate goes from 2% to 1%? Well, now your lead acquisition cost, over $1,000, just like that. Not good. And let's say most people like to say, oh, I can close at 30%, but you know what? Do you guys know what the national average is for a close rate?
No.
18%. So 18%. Ooh, now my lead acquisition cost is almost $1,800. Now, sit rate of 50%, that's still pretty low. My appointment percentage, how many appointments are turning into, contacts turning to 80%, that's pretty high. Let's drop that down to 50%. So we get 6 appointments. So we talk to 6 people. And hold on, what number? Oh, contact to appointment. So let's say we're going to drop this down to, I think I just messed that up. Let's say we're going to drop this down. Well, 30%, actually 40%, in my opinion, is pretty low. So sit rate 50%. So you can really see if these numbers aren't good, how this number, this LAC can go, your acquisition costs go way up. And this is where people get killed, in all these little areas. So let's talk about each one of these areas real quick. All right, let me go back here. So the first thing is most people, your contact rates are too slow. Do you guys know how quickly you should be contacting a lead once it comes in? Now, this is not age leads, but a new lead, how quickly we should be contacting that lead?
3 to 5 minutes.
3 to 5 minutes? What, does anyone else have any different ideas or numbers on that? By the way, welcome Ray, welcome Samantha to the call. Yeah, Stella, absolutely right. And guys, like I said earlier, super appreciate it if you're in a position to turn your cameras on. Makes a big difference. I love talking to people, not to names. Yeah, this is a big area where people just get killed, guys. They are just too slow in their contact rates. Some of the best studies done by MIT, this is actually a screenshot of it. This shows response time from creation by 5 minute initial, by 5 minutes, initial dials to leads that become contact. So basically, from when a lead comes in, how quickly, you need to contact them to get this person on the phone. You notice after about 25 minutes, your chance of getting that person on the phone is almost zero. It's like less than 1%. But if you can contact person, look at that, under 5 minutes, look at that. Look at that. Look at the drop from 5 to 10 minutes. I have one company I was working with, one of the biggest companies in their territory. And when I was meeting with them, I said, how are you guys doing on lead intake? They said, oh, we're doing great. And they said, we have 2 dedicated people. Every time a lead comes in, we make sure every lead gets contacted within 24 hours. Absolutely. And I knew for them, getting that number under 24 hours on new leads was a big deal. But according to national data, 24 hours is like their lead. It's just not quick enough, guys. And I do want to go back to that other number though, because I do know that so that is a difference between having a 1% contact rate and then maybe a 5% contact rate, right? It's a big difference. So guys, make sure you mute yourself if you got stuff going on. Ray, if you can mute yourself, buddy. Or Leah, if you can mute him. Thank you. Okay, so let me share my screen again, guys. All right, so I got to move on real quick, but you can see just increasing that contact rate is going to dramatically bring down your lead cost. The other thing too is, obviously your appointment rates, that's going to do if your scripts, it's going to do if how you're doing there. And your sit rates, this one, I'll tell you, for time's sake, I'm going to say your sit rate should be minimum 70%, guys. Your appointment rate, appointments to contact rate, I would say you want to try to get this at least 60%. If you can get it 70, 75%, or get these 2 in the 80s, that's amazing. If you're having 50% or lower sit rates, you're not doing something correct. Yeah. And your close rates, I would say with good training, you should be able to get that to about 30%. So again, now I would say 5% on age leads is a bit aggressive. So let's go down to about 3 or maybe 2% even here. But you're going to see it makes such a big deal to keep our lead acquisition costs down, and by all these metrics being high. You guys have any questions on any of these before I move on to the next point? Or how to make sure, or how to keep these KPIs as good as possible?
No, I could add one thing though, Brad. Going back to the lead time, if it's an inbound lead, that's when it gets really important to get to it right away. Even 5 minutes, in my opinion, and I work with call centers, and I've actually owned call centers. Even 5 minutes is a long time. Just by taking it down to under that 60-second mark, 1 minute, you will see dramatic lift in the contact rates. And that's everything when you're paying for a lead or when you're getting an inbound lead. So with outbound, it's a different story. But I can tell you I've only seen a handful of companies that when I suggested it actually did it, and when they did, it just was a game changer for their bottom line cost per acquisition.
Yeah, that is a great point, Wayne. Yeah, that is absolutely a game changer, and it's something that depending on now, if you're out someone who is the one-man show, which a lot of the guys in solar these days are, you say, well, how do I do that? Well, the biggest recommendation I have for you, like step number 1, go find a great virtual assistant or solar assistant, whatever you want to call them, or an EA. And this person, any inbound leads that are coming in, you should have a system and a program, and there are programs that are out there, like the one we use at Solar Blueprint. As soon as that lead comes in inbound, it can automatically dial, like instantaneously, your assistant or your appointment setters, so that lead comes in. MIT, when they did their study on this, they actually, very funny, you think like place like MIT would use fancy names when they name things like this. They called it, literally in their paper they published, they called it the wow factor, which was the lead comes in and people are like, wow, I can't believe you got back in touch with me so quickly. They're like, I like just put down my phone because I just put the lead in. Like, it makes such a big difference. So that's a good point. Any other points on KPIs before we move on? All right, cool. So I'm going to move on to the next one, guys. The next one I want to talk about, so yeah. The next one I want to talk about is, this is what we're saying, under 5 minutes, the wow effect. So the next one is leaving money on the table. What do we mean by that? You have all these leads that come in, and the ones that don't get contacted, the sales that don't go through. I remember I was with I was in a big training once. This was years ago. It was actually a SunPower training back in the day when I used to be a SunPower elite dealer. And there was a whole room full of sales guys. And one guy I was sitting next to, he was like, oh, I never follow up with customers. If they don't sell, I just move right on. And I remember thinking, I owned a solar company at the time. I was like, I would kill that guy if he worked for me. But, and this guy, he was bragging about it. Like, that's like, it goes to show some of these guys out there. But what you need to do is, here's the truth. If I have 10 sales guys working for me, or 3, it doesn't matter. The likelihood of those guys being amazing at follow-up is very low, very, very low. So if you're a solar company owner and you're thinking, oh, I'm going to have the best sales guys and the best team, and they're going to be following, no, it's not going to work. Nope. And if they are, guess what they're doing? They're wasting a lot of time that could be spent in something that's automated. Like with our system that we use now, we use a CRM, and it's completely automated, where the lead comes in, the customer gets a text, they get a little video, they get an email, they get they get all those little things that show you're professional. The next day they get another email that says something very specific that is important, something that they'll open. So you have what's called these drip campaigns, these automations, and there's 2 places that you should have these drip campaigns active. One is for all new leads. Any new lead that comes in, they should be part of a drip campaign. The second place is all your unsold deals. This is one, like, I'm always shocked that, like, when I talk to solar companies, they have 0 drip campaigns for their unsold customers. It just goes to the sales rep and it doesn't go through. It's just like out there. It's like, this is someone that's expressed interest in buying. They've met with you. Like, they have, they've given you an electric bill. Maybe you've been in their house, and you're not going to have an automation that's going to just say, hey, it's Brad checking back. I'm going to tell you one, I'll give you 2 really good emails I used to send out, so you guys feel free to use these. One was, did you get a chance? It's always funny what subject lines work in an email. That subject line, did you get a chance? The open rate on it was like, something like 70 or 80% over like 10 years. I couldn't believe how many people would respond to that subject line. And then my email would just say, did you get a chance to look at the proposal I sent you? Like that, people would just respond, But I ended up starting using it for both leads and for unsold customers, because I realized it was such a good subject line. Another great subject line I used was circling back. I don't know why people love that subject. Like, hey, circling back. They're like, oh, hey, I'm just circling back with you. Did you get it? Did you look at that proposal? Like, those 2 out of every email I would track over the years were the 2 highest opens. Now, I had others that had good open rates, but like, I just found, like, sometimes you just strike gold with a simple subject line like that works really well. So, but again, if I was to send an email, did you get a chance, to every single person by myself, you know how much work that is? If I'm seeing 5 or 10 plus customers a week, or your sales reps are, they don't have time to do those follow-ups. So you are leaving way too much money on the table if you don't have these automations in place, or don't have these systems. So that's what this is. Your poor systems, too few contact points. So you want to supercharge CRM. First day, call, text, email. First week, dozens plus contact points, 6 calls, 3 to 4 texts, 3 to 4 emails, and so on and so on. You guys have any questions on that before I get to the next point? About setting up the CRM and sort of, and this is just one of those things where it's like, you're not going to get the majority of your business from these drip campaigns, but you are going to get business from your drip campaigns. So I talk to some guys and they say, well, I'm only closing 2 to 3 deals a month. What if you got 1 a month? That's a quarter of your business from a drip campaign. That's pretty good. And guys, an average sales rep, a good one, is doing 4 to 6 deals a month. So if you can pull in 1 or 2 extra deals a month, like that's pretty massive by something that is working while you're sleeping. Stella, are you going to say something? No? Okay. Cool, guys. All right. Another thing, let's talk about cash flow. So we got 2 cash flow points so far. We got the KPIs, focusing on those. The second thing is having your automations in place with your CRM and your great systems. The third one, let's hop back into the PowerPoint.
Brad, if I could chime in, another important reason why you have to have automation, in my opinion, is because a lot of things are just timing. And if you're not top of mind at the right time, it doesn't matter how much you're contacting them at the wrong time. So you always want to be top of mind, because you never know when the right moment is going to be the right moment for them. Maybe they inquired about solar, and then weeks went by and they were only like half interested, but then maybe they talked to somebody that day, and that person explained how they were saving, $200 from their old bill on their solar, or whatever the case may be. And now that was the right time. And if they don't have you frequently reaching out to them, you're never going to get those deals, because you just didn't talk to them at the right time, and they didn't see you, and they forgot who you are at that point, because that was weeks ago. That's why it really says it takes like at least 7 touch points with every person before you end up getting a sale. And I think it's way higher now with the distraction that we have.
Yeah. Another great point, Wayne. I can remember so many stories, experiences of my own, and solar is not really even weeks. Like a lot of times it's seasons, and a lot of guys I'll meet with in April. Hey, Brad, I want to do it. I don't hear back from them. And then September, October would roll around. They say, hey, Brad, do I have time to get in before the tax season to get in this year? Yep. But how did they remember me? I'll send an email out before the tax season that goes out that says something like, hey guys, there's a reminder that, tax season's almost up. Get your system installed before the end of the year, or those type of things. Or guys, people literally a year later saying last year wasn't good, but because they saw the emails, because they saw the reminder, they're coming back a year later. I mean, I don't have really great numbers on this, but I want to say almost 10 to 15% of our customers over the years came from automation, came from something like that, where the deal wasn't initially closed, but they would come back later and say, okay, I'm now ready to move forward. And at that point, most of the time, those customers, when they say they're ready to move forward, it's usually like, okay, drop the new proposal, drop the new agreement, and then get it signed. It's usually almost like, almost instant, almost like, very high likelihood of closing. So, all right, going on to the next point. All right. So the next point is training. We got Goggins here. You guys know Goggins? If you guys don't know David Goggins, he's quite the character. This is him. He was an ex-Navy SEAL, and not just Navy SEAL. This guy was like Green Beret trained Navy SEAL. This is him after he got out of the Special Forces. He got injured, gained a lot of weight, and this is him today. And he's sort of famous for being this amazing trainer. I think he's a little bit nuts, and most people do, but training, guys, I see more people losing more money in, you can see what I think of the trainings here, than I see in any other issue, particularly for companies that are really honestly trying to grow and scale, is they just do not have trainings. Like usually the trainings are insufficient, they're ineffective, they're a massive time suck. Like this is the pattern I see from most people. Say someone like me, when I was selling solar before I started my own company, I was number 2 in the whole nation for BP when British Petroleum had a solar division. And I, start my own solar company and I start hiring guys, right? So what did I do? And this is like literally what I did for years. And like, I kind of laugh at myself. Like I would hire 2 or 3 guys and I would spend a couple days and train them. And I would pour everything I knew, all my knowledge into these people. So by the time they went out, like I truly wanted to set, I told these guys, I want to set you up for success. And and I had a lot of sales guys who were successful, but here's what also happened. After those trainings, I would be dead exhausted because I would spend days trying to get these sales reps up to speed. And then, of course, if I did train 2 or 3 or 4 guys, 5 guys at a time, inevitably you would have fall off. So just by natural attrition, I would lose 2, 3 of those guys. So I would spend all that time and maybe end up with one really good guy. And the truth was, even the guys that sometimes stayed weren't always even that good. So even to get like a lot of good guys, you have to train 10 people and then you hope to get like maybe 1 or 2 really, really good guys out of that 10. The mistake I made for years is I would spend so much time training these people and so much energy. And that's really the thing that I want to point out here. So much freaking energy training these sales guys. And they wouldn't produce results. Or they would produce results, but it wasn't an effective good use of my time as a company owner. So I could have been using that time if for me, I had a high close rate. I remember the best I ever did. This is one of the things I like to brag about. I literally did a week of sales one time where I did 12 for 12 in a week. Like I felt like I was the god of solar that week. And I remember that, it's funny though, like you go highs and lows. I went the next 2 weeks, I didn't get a sale. I felt like it was like karma, like shooting me down, like, oh, you arrogant, prick. but I knew how to sell, right? But if I'm that good at selling as a company owner and I'm spending all my time training, then that's not a good use of my time. I'm not building the company. I'm growing guys for sales, but that's not because the issue is with sales guys. You need to constantly replenish your sales guys. You always, you really need to be constantly hiring, training. And this is something we're going to talk about at the end a little bit, but hiring, training, replacing like that, just like that. If you're not really going to be able to grow and scale as a solar company. You're going to leave a lot of money on the table with that. So one of the things I learned over the years was eventually to start documenting everything. I put all my trainings down. The first step was just like this is today. I put everything down. The first step I did was put PowerPoints for everything. Then, I made videos. So now instead of me having to talk my way through everything to every single person or hope my sales manager can talk his way through everything to every single person, which means he's not really handling the daily sales activities he needs to. We have videos. So the videos may not give everything, but they give, a lot. So everyone gets, and you also, what does that do? It standardizes it with the videos. And you documentation, like I said, with the PowerPoints or your PDFs, however you do that. Then you have practice time, role playing, but this is built into your training program. So when you're interacting with people during your trainings, the interaction shouldn't be you teaching. The interaction should be you role playing, listening to them role play so you can provide feedback to them. That's a great use of your sales manager time. But if you're the owner, that's an awesome use of your time. But you just trying to teach everybody everything when you could have had a video to teach them that is not a good use of your time. So this is a mistake. I see a lot of guys out there. Oh, I'm a great sales guy. I've trained them. And all I'm thinking is like, this guy's killing himself. I know because I've been there. I've done it. And I see all the other companies doing the same thing. So guys, get your trainings in place, document everything. Sorry, document everything. And you'll just see it's going to make a huge difference. Also too, don't be afraid. Like all my trainings has quizzes. Like when I do trainings now, I just was working with one company and I would make it a mandatory, like some quizzes, they'd have to get a 90% or 100% just to move on to the next training. If they don't like one of my things I would joke about would be like, I would have like a solar keywords training and like I would have my illegal word list, right? And if my sales reps and my lead generators didn't get 100% on the illegal word list, that they couldn't work for me. So like I didn't want them saying, free solar. I didn't want them to be able to say like, the word contract. And it's probably a whole list of others. I know you guys, maybe know these words, but why don't you want them saying? Because if one person says that once, you're going to lose that one customer forever. So there's certain things like you have to make sure it is 100% that just don't happen. So quizzes, tests, those type of things, they make a big difference. So again, one of the things I do now is I make sure all the companies I'm working with, all the people I'm working with, all these trainings are in place. So you have the videos, the quizzes, the documentation, all the things you need to rinse and repeat. And that's how you grow and scale with those things. Because again, guys, for all you who don't believe me, time is money, then like you're, how do I say this? I work with a lot of guys who are, and one of my best friends in solar, he runs an amazing door knocking organization, like an amazing one. He's great. But at the end of the day, as great as he is, if he's out there knocking doors himself, he's trading his time for money. So you have to learn how to set up systems where you're not trading time for money, guys. All right. Next one and the last one before we get to the last of the Q&A is going to be speed to cash. What do I mean here? This is an area where I see so many of you guys getting killed. I mean, it literally, it breaks my heart. It hurts me, guys, when you guys are taking, weeks and months to get paid, even on your M1 payments. So why is this happening? Sloppy post-sale handoffs, lack of urgency, unclear expectations with your EPC or your installation partners. So this is something that you really need to like address. Like you guys are working way, way, way too hard. You're spending all that money on the sale just to like wait, just to not get paid and not get paid quickly. Like it is not okay. And it is something that needs to be taken care of. And there are some things you may say, well, some of this stuff's out of my control. Yes, but not all of it. A lot of these things you can control. So let's focus on the things that we can control, at least to a certain extent. So the first one I'm going to talk about is going to be get your post-sale stuff organized. You need to have what's called a clean packet. Do you guys know what a clean packet is? Have you ever heard this term in solar? Clean packets? I would say this is going to be the difference between leaving a lot of money on the table and avoiding cancellations. Not just getting speed to money, but avoiding cancellation with clean packets. What's a clean packet? When your sales rep closes that deal, 100% of everything that is needed needs to be done that day. Not, I'm going to do it later. Not, oh, we'll get the electric bill another time. Not, we're going to do that verification call with the financing some other time. Not all these other things. We'll sign that one document later. No. 100% of things that are necessary to close a deal need to be done the first day. This is called a clean packet, guys. So when you give this, so it's not just saying, oh, I have a finance agreement or a cash agreement or a loan agreement or lease agreement and a handoff to the installer. It's you when you give that project packet to the installer, it has everything you need the first time. The worst thing I hear from sales guys, and if you're this type of sales guy, you need to like man up and game up immediately, is like, oh, I'll get that later. Oh, I signed it. I'm gonna work on getting the electric bill. If you're signing docs, whether it's on Zoom or in person, even if the person says, well, my electric bill's online, I gotta go online. Yeah, okay, fine, I'll wait. I will wait. Go download your electric bill. Go do it. I'm gonna do it. If it adds 20 minutes to the meeting, it is so important and necessary that you do this to make sure you get that clean packet. All right, well, let's talk about a couple more things to need to speed on getting paid. Because again, you guys are getting killed here, so you need to change this. Pre-schedule site evaluations. This is something, again, I don't get this. You should be able to work with whoever your installer is, make a Google Calendar. It's really simple, and find out when you guys can do site evaluations. You close the deal. Today is Thursday. So you should have just the calendar. Hey, looks like we have 2 spots open, a 10 morning slot or an afternoon slot, or a 10 or a 2, whatever you do with the installer, that they know that you can book site evaluations on those days. So you don't have to try to schedule it, and it takes a week or 2 to get scheduled. If you don't have again, this may be outside of some of your controls, but even if your installer is not offering this now, I strongly suggest that you push for this. And again, it's not that hard to do with Google Calendars. And again, during that close, say, hey, I would like to get your site evaluation on the books. When are you available? And just pull out that Google Calendar. Guys, this is because, as we know, most of us, we're not going to get paid our M1 payments until that site evaluation is complete and the design is confirmed. So it kind of makes sense that you get that. So I see Wayne's asking a question to everybody. How long does it take to get M1? I mean, ideally, if you're working with some of these finance companies, I would say you want to be able to get to M1 within 2 to 3 weeks, depending on the company who you're working with. It may be slower, it may be faster, but anything more than 2 to 3 weeks, it's just way too long. I would say ideally, if you can get it down 1 to 2 weeks, then you're doing really, really good. But I hear guys, M1's coming a month later. It's just not okay, guys. All right. Hold accountable. What do I mean by that? So all I mean, this is another thing. If you can't get M1s until the design's confirmed, you need to have in writing, guys, with your installers, how long it's going to take from the point of the time that the site evaluation is done so that final design is done. So I would say, honestly, for that, 24 hours. If they push back, say, okay, 48 is okay. It does not take a week to take a site evaluation documentation and turn that into a solar installation packet or CAD design, but it should be a day or 2 at best. So I close the deal Friday. I schedule the site evaluation. The first one's available is next Tuesday. No problem. By Thursday, I need to have those CAD documents and approved by the customer so I can submit that to the financer to get paid. You guys can't be waiting around weeks and months to get your first payments when you're buying leads and you need to get paid. All right. Any questions on that, guys, on that side of the cash flow about trying to get paid quickly? And I will say this, I got the bonus here, which is hire and fire at light speed. All I'm saying here, guys, is a lot of guys are, and I'm like this is something I've had to learn the hard way over the years. Like I'm just way too nice. Then I would be like, oh no, this guy or this person, they're going to get there. They'll learn it, guys. After a week or 2, and most of the time about a week, if someone's not producing quickly, they're probably not going to produce. You got you're going to, and this goes back to the training, right? Oh, I spent so much time training them. I can't let them go because I just killed myself and worked so hard to get them trained. Well, yeah, because you did that, now they're going to stay, and they're just going to be sucking up your appointments. They're not following up. And this is true for lead generators. It's true for your sales reps. You'll know pretty quickly. Trust your gut. Trust the results. If someone's been with you a couple of weeks and they can't close deals, in all likelihood, they're not going to close deals. It's just not going to happen. So you need to be really quick. And this is another cash flow thing, because if you're buying leads in any sort or have lead campaigns going on and those leads aren't quickly transitioning, then that's an issue. All right, guys, we got 8 minutes, so I want to keep it prompt. Any questions to close up the day? Any topics, it's fine. It could be on cash flow, could be on a different topic.
I have one. So you answered a little bit about the M1, but some of the stories I hear, and again, I don't sell solar deals myself, so I'm a little unfamiliar, but I'm trying to understand and learn more. So one of the complaints I seem to hear from some people is the deals take, you know, a really long time to get installs, and it's usually not the sales reps fault or even the company's fault per se, but it's like the installation company is dragging their feet or whatever. That's why I was asking, like, what's the average time, average expectancy? And I think it changes per state, but what's the average time, like when somebody can sell a deal, expect to get their M1, their M2, just their commissions in general, and earn a living?
I would say it does depend on states. So I'll give two examples. I would say let's look at Massachusetts or the Northeast, and Florida for now. In Florida, I have projects and I worked with companies there that literally I've seen deals closed on like a Friday, and the next Saturday, so 8 days later, I see panels on the roof. Like, it's incredible. Like, it's unbelievable to me, which is why you see a lot of people saying, I want to be in Florida. There are parts of California where this is happening, parts of Texas with things like this. Texas, I've seen about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks on some of these installs. Well, my experience where I started in Massachusetts, never, ever, ever. I was seeing installs on average, it was like, 90 days to get paid on average. And so you have to really set that expectation for your territory too. The interesting thing with that, though, is there's almost a direct correlation to, in most areas, with some exceptions, of course, between profitability and speed. So Florida is going to have a lower utility rate, lower profitability, but quicker installs, right? Whereas Massachusetts may have higher, and Rhode Island and Connecticut and New York may have higher profitability, but and higher utility rates, but much, much slower installation times. And
sorry, Brad, what do you mean by profitability?
So in Florida, let's say in real dollars and cents, let's talk about this. In real dollars and cents in Florida, let's say you can get a red line between, the low twos to mid twos. So what does that mean? So let's say you can get a 230 or 235 red line in the state of Florida. Now, because the utility rates are 15 cents, 16 cents down in Florida per kilowatt hour, people are selling solar from like an EPC, a total installation cost per watt. Let's say they're selling down there on average at $3 a watt. That means on that solar deal, you made 65 cents. If it was 235, and you sold it for $3 a watt, you made 65 cents per watt. If you have, I'll pull out my calculator. So if I'm at 65% cents per watt, let's say on a 8 kW, so 8,000 times 0.65, I still made $5,000, right? That's not chump change. That's not nothing, right? That's still good for one sale. But if I was in Massachusetts, and let's say my utility rate in some areas is legitimately 40 cents per kilowatt hour, so more than 3 times, almost 3 times what it is maybe in Florida, definitely more than double, then maybe I'm selling at, let's say $3.75 for the same thing. So let's say now I have $1.10 on that same 8 kW. So instead of making, $5,000 on that same deal, I made almost $9,000, something like that. So but you have a little bit more profitability, but a little bit more margin. I could say, maybe a better word, a little bit more margin, but you can have a slower install time on that. Here's the other side of that though. In places where you have high utility rates, you can also sell leases. And this is sort of a little secret that people don't realize. With the high interest rates right now, I think it was a week and a half ago, we saw interest rates hit a 22-year high. So home mortgage rates. And with that, we saw interest rates for solar loans and the financing and all that. It's in many areas, it's a much better deal for someone to lease solar panels than it is to loan. I actually spoke to one of the regional managers of a large leasing company. I said, how have your numbers shifted over the last year or two? He said a couple of years ago, their company was almost like 70-30 loan to lease. Now it's 30-70 loan to lease. which means the majority of people are now leasing. Now, leasing is an algorithm. So that same job, I can now have because it's an algorithm, instead of making $9,000 on it, I may be able to make $12,000, $15,000 off one job in some of these territories. Now, could I make that in Florida? No, because the rates are too low. So maybe I'm still only making my $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in the state of Florida off a lease. But if I come to states like California, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, those states where the utility rates are much higher, then I have a lot more margin, particularly now with these leasing agreements. And still saving the customer. I'm talking a customer's got a 45-cent or 40-cent utility rate, and I'm selling them a lease at 20 cents. When I started selling Sunrun leases, when I first started my first ever project, I sold Sunrun back in like 2010. The utility rate was 15 cents in the territory. I was selling leases at like 13 cents. And two pennies savings. And my customers were eating it up. They loved it. Now I can sell a 20-cent savings. And it's like I have trouble wrapping my mind around like how amazing that deal is, like cutting someone's bill in half. Like I went from helping people hedge against electricity in the inflation cost of electricity versus now saving them a ton of money right off the bat now of leasing. So depending on what state you're in and what your territory is, there's a lot of possibility to there's a lot of possibilities to make different margins, but the speed will definitely depend on your territory. So one of the things like you can, I'm very open to talk about is where the differences, like the pros and cons of what territories and those things. So it's 4:59, guys. I do want to keep the timing. I do like to stick to the time, so I will just close it up, guys, and say, if you have any questions or anything like this, or you're looking for something more of a system for you to be able to implement all of the techniques we've talked about, which is the lead generation programs, which is the trainings, the CRM system of all the automations built into it that I built and refined over 10 plus years, and the community and the network. We are doing that with the Solar Blueprint program. So it comes with all those things. You're going to have exclusive access to me through all that. So it is something that we do have available to you guys. The link was there. It's thesolarblueprint.com. We'll send it out in the email to you guys, everybody who registered. So you will have that available to you guys. And we have a lot of great stuff going on, a lot of free bonuses right now too, involved in that. So you guys can check that out. But with that said, I do appreciate very, very much you guys being here. We're going to do this every Thursday, different topics each week. I know this week was a little bit different. Previously, it was a little bit more interactive, but today we really wanted to focus on sort of getting that knowledge out on the things you can do to like increase, your cash flow within your solar business. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys being here.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you, Stella. You're amazing as always. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Ray, Leah, Wayne. Guys, thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Brad.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Have a good
Bye,
day.
guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.